Welcome back to the next episode of Bowl SSC. I, Sonakshi Bhuttan, your today's host, on behalf of Enactus, Sri Aurobindo. I'm here to kickstart our next episode of the podcast entitled as Bowl SSC. I welcome all of you and duly extend my heartiest greetings to all. As the famous phrase goes, today's world is shrinking, and the direct implication of that is there's no such field knowing about which will be of no use to you. Every topic is meant to be unraveled, every stone is meant to be turned. Being said so, we are here to embark on this journey through this series of podcasts. I would like to introduce you all to our today's guests, Ms. Nishita Baliarsingh and Ms. Nikita Baliarsingh. Hello, ma'am.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon. Ms. Nishita Baliarsingh, the co-founder and CEO of Nexus Power. The brand Nexus manufactures rechargeable, bioorganic, and biodegradable batteries for electric vehicles. She has been a recipient of multiple awards for innovation in battery technology. At such a young age, she has also featured in media stories in both print and digital media. Besides this, Miss Nishita is an amateur photographer and an adventure freak. She also takes keen interest in art, sketching, sports, music, and horse riding. Miss Nikita Baliarsingh, the co-founder and CIO of Nexus Power. Besides this, she's a creative writer, filmmaker, musician, sports enthusiast, and a brave horse rider. Miss Nikita is very active when it comes to business, leadership, and travel. She's a dynamic leader and a sustainability enthusiast. Seeing the zeal and belief in sustainability, we have them today to instigate all our listeners and viewers sustainability culture in India. Let's begin with the very first question that comes to your mind. So, ma'am, what does it mean to create a culture of sustainability?
It's not like you need something in specific. I mean, it's not like you have a set of rules or a kind of a thumb rule that you need to set up yourself as a more sustainable enthusiast or kind of set up the arena in sustainability. What I believe is what you actually need is where you can understand the nuances of what you're trying to do or what you've already been doing. When you start calculating those impacts on the environment for all your acts that you've done and you're doing or you will do in future, and you start analyzing how it could impact not only the environment but people around you, whether positive or negative, and then start choosing more consciously in those acts, whether on the more on the positive side than the negative. I think that's where you were actually imbibing the sustainability aspect into yourself, not only individually but as a whole across the environment and for the greater interest of people as a general space also. So I think that's one major space that I believe is what is what is to be looked into, is that you start being more conscious about your actions, start being more calculative what you do and what you have been doing. So once you start calculating that, you realize how much of impact it creates, both positive and negative. And when you pick the positive against the negative, that's where you are actually moving towards sustainability.
I agree with you, ma'am. Ma'am, would you like to answer?
I don't think there's anything much to add on to this. I would probably just maybe summarize what she said is, and this is something that both of us believe is, you don't choose that you will work in the sustainability industry. The basic idea of doing something or giving a solution to a problem is with this mindset that you really don't want to damage the environment or you want to take care of it. So it doesn't begin with the fact that you have to do something in sustainability. That's how it is probably for us, and I think for most of the people who are trying to take care of the environment.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Let's move on to our next question. India is a country with a rich history of civilization. Harappan civilization was one of the oldest civilizations of ancient India. If observed, one can see great examples of sustainability in many ancient civilizations. History tells us how creative and impactful our past generations were to act in a way to keep this plant green and clean. From clothes to utensils, from food to lifestyle, their choices prove they lived a sustainable and zero waste lifestyle. What are your views on the link of our ancient history to the sustainability culture?
I go first, you go first. Go ahead. Shoot. All right. Okay. Right. When you talk about ancient culture and civilizations, one very important thing to understand from there is everything they picked up and tried to build was out of nature only. So whatever they found in the environment, whether it was wood, it was stones, it was dry leaves, it was that entire incident of discovery of fire, where you're actually just crushing two stones against each other and getting the sparks on the dry leaves, and they catch automatically. Whether it is that, whether it is the food, which is natural fruits and leaves and things like that. Whether it was your houses, which are again mud and leaves, dry leaves, and kind of an asbestos, natural asbestos. Whether that is that, or even when it comes to the discovery of wheel, discovery of transportation of materials, etc., etc. When it comes to even the structure where you're looking at a barter system, which is used as a currency at that time. So whatever they have actually done or tried to build was purely out of nature, and that's typically very inspiring for people even today to try and understand and build products which can actually come from the nature and naturally get back there. So it's that concept where we call a circular industrial ecology. You have a cradle to the grave concept. So it comes from the soil and then it gets back to the soil. So the entire circle is complete and there's no waste. And typically that's what they were doing in the ancient civilizations. What changed for us is when we advanced with understanding that you could actually chemically build substances imitating the natural ones available, and that's where and that at that point we certainly forgot to understand that you have to eliminate waste in one kind. So we moved so fast into industrial evolution and development and globalization and etc., that we totally forgot that that waste element which they used to take care of, we somehow missed that out. But and that is where you've come back to spreading more awareness today about industrial ecology, about sustainability, about biomimicry as a concept, which purely means that you make goods from natural substances by mimicking the natural processes. So that when you mimic natural processes, you actually make sure that there is no waste any in any possible sense. When it comes from the cradle to the these are concepts which typically you really learn, understand, analyze from the ancient civilization. I think they tried their best to earn a living with whatever was available to them, and from their learnings is where the human advanced and then tried to build more mechanical or chemical substances to what we reach today. In those times, almost everything was biodegradable. It used to completely degrade without waste. Today, I think we've fallen down to about 60% or 40-45% around, where only 45% or 50% of the materials are degradable, the others are not. And this movement has happened because we wanted, as humans, we wanted more facilities, we wanted more luxury, if I would like to call it. And that's where the problems have happened. But if you carefully plan and manage luxury in a more sustainable way, I think you would certainly be able to reverse the entire damage that we've done in the last some thousand years or so.
No, in fact, it's not about advancements or your needs and kind of developments. I think it's so much more about capitalization. So the need for money was the major driving factor, I would say, that actually pushed mass production and setting up of huge factories, creating products actually. So we've practically pushed products into the minds of people through the marketing and sales that we've done over the years. And all of this has actually been done because people wanted to make money out of what they were making for people. So not just for self use, but for others as well. So that's how I think capitalization drove the industrial revolution and all the other changes that we had. But it's wrong to say that that shouldn't have been done, because that was also a very integral part of how the world has progressed over the years. But coming back to how sustainability in the yesteryears has actually developed the sense of love for the environment in people. So it is kind of something that we are brought up as children. So you have this entire mindset of taking care of plants and grasslands and flowers and animals. So we are connected to the natural world. So it's just there within us. So what we need to do is we had to look for an efficient way to kind of make money, but not harm the environment as well. And I think that is how sustainability as a term has been derived as well. So it's not about doing something different or changing things that we have been doing earlier. It's more about becoming more responsible and trying to find out ways of making money and also taking care of the environment. And probably this is something that is even in the yesteryear civilizations, people have done. So when they were using the environment, the utensils made out of clay and mud and fruits and vegetables from the environment, they were also equally planting them back. They're also taking care that they're not harming them, or they are not unnecessarily misutilizing all the resources. So the basic concept has to probably remain the same. Just that with changing technology, with modern ideas and new ways of development, of course, keeping in mind that a lot of urbanization is also taking place, you just have to kind of look for ways where you can just balance all of these components together. And I'm sure history has answers to that also.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next question is, since people in India are unaware about how to establish vision, your sustainability vision could describe your aspirations, well-being, and culture. It may seem like something that can be skipped, but it is crucial underpinning of any work towards building a better space. What would you like to say, ma'am?
I would actually disagree when you say that Indians are not aware of building a sustainable life, because as I just said, it is something that we are brought up with as children. You go into any household, you will see they will have a few pots around. They will have a maybe a grass area in their house. They'll have flowers. They'll Many of us have pets, and we, as Indians, as human beings, not just Indians, we tend to depend a lot on our environment, and we like to keep these things close to us. So it's not that we don't know how to live a sustainable life. It's just that probably we don't focus on that as much, or we don't take it as a very integral part of our day-to-day lives. Just that it is there, it's present as a latent component in our lives, but it is not being given the emphasis it wants to be given to these components. Apart from that, your aims sets what you want to do. So as I said, sustainability is not something that you aim at doing, right? So you don't start a company or an idea or a thought with this in mind, that this has to be a project in the sustainable domain. You start with the solution, and somehow you end up in that phase that it is taking care of the environment. It is giving you your desired results in terms of growth in the company, in terms of growth in your life. That falls under that bracket, that it is a sustainable project. But that ideally should not be the mindset, because if you start with the idea that sustainability is the in thing and you should do something in that domain, then somewhere your path towards your desires are not on the right path. That's what I believe.
Very right, ma'am. COVID-19 has increased consumer awareness and commitment to buying sustainably. They are more cautious about the scarcity of natural resources due to the COVID-19 crisis. What's your take on the new normal situation?
It's not only COVID-19, I believe. I mean, people had been more conscious prior to COVID-19 crisis also. The only difference is now it's more visible because everywhere you hear about COVID, and then you have tagged along statements coming up, which makes you feel that it is people have got more conscious right now. Definitely, we have realized a lot of things in this crisis, COVID pandemic space, which purely includes understanding your necessities, understanding what you actually need and actually don't need, or the pure difference between a need and a want. I'm sure that has happened in the pandemic space, but not like people have suddenly become very active and very conscious about nature and conscious about resources and all. That it has come eventually. It has happened globally. It's taken its own sweet time. It's happened eventually, but I wouldn't say it's only the pandemic which is responsible for this transition shift in people. It has been happening before that as well, just that it's not being noticed. So if you realize and see how offices have moved, how banks have moved. I mean, if you go at least 15 years back in time, you'd realize that a lot of paperwork used to happen in the bank. So for everything, they had a paper, and you had to write down something, or you had forms, and a lot of paper was wasted, and terrible amount of printing jobs, so a lot of ink toxicity, a lot of things like that, which eventually have now moved digital. And this digital transition did not happen just because of COVID. It already started happening about 7-8 years ago. So if you look at 15 years back in time, a lot of paper, everything was on paper, manual calculations, manual work. 7 years, 8 years down the line, it was actually slightly getting towards the automation phase. And maybe I think 4 years back in time, it was purely automated. So So I don't remember going to the bank the last 2 years or so. In fact, last 4 years or so. I don't remember going to the bank. The reason is that everything you want to do is available for you on with technology and digital, and that's it was a very necessary step to be taken, and it was taken, and that definitely did not have a pandemic in mind. What pandemic has changed a bit is this culture of maybe work from home, which was again a necessity during the pandemic space. But again, people have started going back to the offices. Schools are reopened. So the fact is, everything cannot be in the four walls of a house. The pandemic forced us to be there. But if I put the pandemic area aside and to think about the last 7 8 years, how things have moved globally in terms of technology and digital rise, basically. So we realize that a lot of things where we realize that there's a necessity of doing this automation transition shift, and that has been done. So, and wherever there was not a necessity, taken up. Something like work from home, for example, it wasn't really required. Automation has been in place. Of course, the same laptops here, same laptops in the office space, but automation was required. It was a necessity. It was taken up, but keeping people stuck to their houses was not required. So that was not taken up. When there was a compulsion, it was taken up. So keeping pandemic aside, wherever the globe has globally, people have felt the need to go automated or have technology to take their make work faster or take the space and get things done better. That's been happening for the last 7 8 years now. I think in the next 5 to 10 years from now is the boom where we'll see a lot of other technology aided softwares or services or structures coming in, and I'm sure it has to happen because at the end of the day, whatever we are doing right now, automation came in to make human work easy and of course promote sustainability. So if I keep aside the fact that e-waste is a problem, technology has definitely been benefiting people in a lot of ways.
All right, ma'am. It was really insightful to hear you both and your detailed description. As a last remark, if you could emphasize your thoughts on how the future for this sustainable culture would look like and what are the important elements to shape it.
Oh well, so the world is already looking like it should be looking like in terms of sustainability and how it should be. So we're already heading towards where we really want to be. A lot of companies have already been in that space where they are looking at carbon neutrality. In fact, carbon negative in terms of the emissions. Not only globally but in India also. We have so many of these big conglomerates. If I talk about say ITC, maybe Tata, they are already in a space where they started realizing the issue of high emissions and water pollution, air pollution, and all kind of trouble to the environment. And they started realizing this early. So as of now, they're almost close to hitting carbon neutrality. Eventually, by 2025, 2027 is when they want to be carbon negative, which is basically they want to cut down all the carbon emissions that they had actually done in the past. It's going to help them be carbon negative. So you're actually cutting down your negative score, carbon emission score. Sorry. So I think we're already on that path where we are highlighting what we need, how things have to happen, how things are moving. The only thing that I can maybe emphasize or highlight on right now is as individuals, we need to be more cautious of our actions and understand how we can contribute to the environment. Of course, not like we have to conserve everything, but we need to consider these three P's that we talk about in terms of sustainable development goals, which is people, profit, and planet. So we talk about the people have to be safeguarded, and we need to make sure that their resources and their needs are met in the future. The planet needs to be protected for life to go on the planet, and at the same time, we do not have to compromise with our earnings or our profits or our incomes that we make. So when we have all three of them in tangent, I think that's where we are fairly achieving the goals and we are fairly heading towards the future, which is more sustainable and more green.
And I guess I'd just like to add on to this that, when we talk about sustainability or things that we need to emphasize on, I really believe that it's not just about making a product which is sustainable or a product which actually is eco-friendly and benefits the environment. It is also very important to see how the entire manufacturing process functions. So if you are able to green the entire product but not the manufacturing chain, then at the end of the day, your net value of environment conservation is actually zero, maybe negative. Because if your manufacturing process is creating damage to the environment and to your surroundings, then having a green product doesn't really help. So that is not a very effective position to be in. So that is why we believe and we follow it completely with Nexus Power that your entire manufacturing process has to be green. and you shouldn't be wasting or damaging anything in the environment or in your surroundings, or you should also be creating massive amount of wastes out of your manufacturing process. So as Nishita mentioned earlier, there's a zero waste model. So everything that goes elsewhere in some other way, making sure that you don't give out any waste. So for people who are looking up to sustainability as the next big thing and who want to work in this domain, it's very important that not just your goods or your services, but your entire manufacturing process, your supply chain, your distribution channel, everything has to be as sustainable as your product is. That is what sustainability truly means, and that is what is going to be the true essence of building a sustainable world.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your worthy time. I'm sure that our audience will learn a lot from you and put in place in their personal lives. We hope to hear from you in the near future as well. That was it for today's episode of Bowl SSC. Reach out to us with any questions, suggestions, and recommendations. Our podcast is telecasted on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and our very own YouTube channel, Enactus Sri Aurobindo College. See you all again next week, Tuesday, sharp at 8, with yet another interesting topic and an eminent guest. Till then, take care. Signing off, your for today's host, Sonakshi Button. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, and a wonderful podcast, I must say, honestly.
Right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much for having us. And you guys have done a good job. We had a good time. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Thank you for sparing time for us.
Always a
Always a
pleasure.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.